What's up, amigo? Are you starting out in sports motion graphics? This tutorial is a perfect entry point. We're building a 3D sports scene, no Cinema 4D, no Blender, no plugins, just After Effects. It's easier than you think, and the project files are ready to go. Let's get you on the path to creating pro-level sports motion graphics. If you want to go beyond the tutorials and master sports motion graphics with real projects and mentorship, then get on the waitlist for my sports masterclass. All the links are in the description, and let's get started with the tutorial. Amigos, I'm going to show you the method that I use to create the field lines or the court lines. Yes, you can download a vector file from the internet, modify it. I've done that as well, but sometimes also creating it from scratch is helpful, especially in certain circumstances where you need to have an amount of control over the lines. So let me just give you a quick primer. I don't want to spend too much time, but let's just quickly create a composition. And I'm going to bring in this example. This is just an image. I'm going to scale this up, just scale it up, maybe about 150. I'm going to lock it, deselect. And then from here is just using shape layers, basically the rectangle or the ellipse or the rounded rectangle. For example, double click, and I'm going to remove the fill and add a stroke. Let's make it this color. And let's make it a little thicker. And then from here, just simply going to the path, unlink it, and just moving this, for example, like this. Okay, so that's one. Let's do the goalie area. And for that, what I can do is, usually I'll do it all in one shape layer. That's a strategy that I pretty much use. It's up to you if you want to use multiple shape layers. But this could be the outer field line, for lack of a better word. All right, let's copy this and let's paste it in. And this one, what I'm gonna do is bring it here. And I'm going to move this, zoom in so I can see this a little better. Let's see if I have enough real estate to show you as well. Let's make it 50%. And this is almost there. Perfect. A little bit less, 230. And we'll make it 550. Okay, and if you need to move it, you can always move it here with the position. And to create this semicircle is pretty easy. What I would do is go to the ellipse tool, and what I'll do is double click. Click here on the shape layer, double click, and it creates an ellipse. We'll go down, we'll make it 500 by 500, link it. By the way, this could be like the center if you want. Okay, that'll be the center. We'll label this center. We'll make a copy, Control C, and then Control V. And then this one, we'll go to the path. We'll move this here. And then from here, we'll add a trim path. And then we'll just trim it. Just dial in the right number. And basically that's how I create these from scratch. I'm gonna leave it like this for now because the rest is just basically repeating the same process. But you can see that little by little, just using the shape layers, just recreating this. And I know exactly what the lines are, and I can manipulate it in any way that I want. And there's been some that I've actually modified, some that I've downloaded and modified, but sometimes I find that recreating it just gives me a little more control, especially when I'm doing things that are very specific. But just wanted to give you a quick how-to of how you can create your own field lines if you want to. Obviously, like I mentioned, you're free to download one and just plug it into After Effects, and hopefully it'll be one that's well constructed that will allow you to do what we're going to do in this tutorial. Okay, amigos, now that you know how to create the field lines or the court lines with shape layers, the next step is to start building our 3D environment and extruding those lines. If you've downloaded the project files, you can go to pre-comps, you can go to the field lines folder, and you'll find different sports, different lines that I've already created for you, so you can simply copy and paste. You don't have to create them from scratch. What we'll do for this tutorial, we'll go to basketball court lines, and we'll go to layer 1, and we're going to copy this layer. Now, one thing that I do want to highlight is the anchor point. I've strategically placed the anchor point in this location because it makes compositing a little easier. If you're creating yours from scratch, try to place the anchor point in a similar location. Okay, let's copy and paste. Control C, Command C to copy. And let's create a new comp. Head over to the comp icon, click on it. Let's name our composition 3D GFX, and we'll call it basketball. 1920 by 1080, 23.976, and I'll change the background color to black for now. And let's paste it in. Okay, let's place this in 3D space. Let's go to the 3D switch, click on it, hit R for rotation. For the Z rotation, let's make this 90 degrees. And now let's go to the X rotation and let's make it minus 90. So this is now sitting on the floor. If I go to the 3D view and go to custom view 1, this is like a bird's eye view from an angle. We can see where it is. And you can go to the camera tools right here. And you can also hit C on the keyboard. And if you hit C again, you can toggle through the different camera tools. Let's dolly in and let's hit C again so we can go to the pan tool. Okay, here it is. Now the next step is we need to change the render engine from classic 3D to advanced 3D. Now before we do anything else, I'm going to go to About After Effects just to let you know that I'm using version 25.2.2. So any version, I think from version 25 and obviously above, should work with all the steps that I'm about to show you in this tutorial. I believe there are some stuff in version 24 for After Effects that may not be there. So definitely you want to be on version 25. Okay, now that we switched to advanced 3D render engine, if we drill down, we now have two more options, geometry options. And if we go to extrusion depth, we can give it a value of 5, and we've extruded this in 3D. Okay, now there's one more thing that I want to do is go to material options, and I'm going to go down to specular shininess, and I'm going to increase this to about 85%, and it'll make it more reflective, more metallic. It doesn't really look like it right now, but once we add our lights, you'll see it. Okay, now that we have our basketball court lines, we're going to rename this to basketball court lines 3D, and let's make two more copies. Control D, Control D. The second copy, let's call it floor, and this one, we'll call it trim path. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go to the floor. Let's solo this layer, and let's go back to geometry options. And for this one, this will be the floor. So we don't want any depth really. We can leave it at 0. We'll go to contents. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the semicircle dotted, the semicircle, the lines, and the paint. Let's hide that. All we want is a 3-point line for this one. Now, let's go to the selection tool, the letter V for victory. And what we want to do is we want to disable the stroke. So let's select none. And we want a fill color. Now, when I hit OK, nothing happens. And that's because in this case, we need to go to the folder, the 3-point line, and we need to add the fill manually from here. So now that we added the fill, we can select white for the fill. And I'm going to place the floor underneath, and let's solo the 3D, and we have an issue. This is what it's looking, and it's not good, but we're going to fix it. Let's switch our view to the front view, and it's pretty zoomed out. So we can go to the camera tools, the letter C for Charlie again, and we can dolly in. Let's dolly all the way in so we can see this. And what we want to do with a floor, let's go to the position property, is simply just move it down Actually, this is the wrong layer. Let's go to the floor layer, which is layer number 3, and let's move that down. And you can see here with the Y value, we can make this 545. Perfect. Now when we switch to our custom view 1, and if I show you full screen, this is what it should look. Okay, now the next step is to add some trim path to the court lines. So let's do that. Let's solo just the trim path. And again, we want to remove the depth. So let's make it 0. And for material options, I'm going to reset the shininess, right click, reset it, goes back to 5. And for this one, go to the selection tool and change the color to a dark gray or black. It's hard to see it. So what I'm going to do is go to the comp settings, Control K, Command K, and simply change the background color. It's a little easier for you to see it. And now we're going to animate those lines. Now, when we go to the contents folder, since we have all the sections in folders, we can add trim path to each of these folders individually and animate trim path for all of these folders. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it simple and add a global trim path to animate all of them at the same time or individually. And to do that, go to contents, which is our root folder. We'll go to add, and let's add trim path. Now, when you add trim path, make sure that it is underneath all these folders. If it's somewhere up here, it's not gonna work. It may work, but I recommend putting it underneath. Now that we have it underneath, this is going to act like a global trim path, like I mentioned. And you can see here, let me hide the controls. You can see that it's animating this. So let's add some keyframes. Make sure that your CTI is at the beginning at 0. Go to the end, add a keyframe, and let's move forward to 3 seconds, and let's add a keyframe. Let's go back to the beginning and let's make this 0. So it'll go from 0 to 100. Now, right now it's going at the same time. If you want to go individually, we can go to trim multiple shapes and switch it to individually, and it'll go one by one. And it'll go in the order, that you have it here, starting from the first one, the first group. Okay, now this is looking good. Let's unsolo this. And one thing that I want to do is go back to our front view, go to our basketball lines, the trim path, and we might want to move it a little higher, just above it. Maybe 539.5 is fine. So it's just sitting just slightly above it. Okay. And if I play this back, this is what we have. So save your project file. The next step is to increase the size of our court lines. If we go to the scale, you'll notice that it is at 100%, but since this is a shape layer and it's a vector layer, we can increase it as big as we want. So feel free to make it bigger. And what I'll do is I'll select the trim path and the floor layer, parent it to the 3D, and scale that all the way up to 600%. And from here, let's create our camera. Go to layer, new camera, and let's select the 28mm preset. I want a wider angle for this composition. And let's make sure that we are in camera 1, switch to camera 1. And let's go to the camera tools, C for Charlie. And what I'll do is just orbit and pan this down. Let's reposition this. Doesn't have to be perfect right now. We just want kind of like in the ballpark, because we'll fix and dial in the right values in a little bit. Okay, now we want to add the background. And to be honest, I kept it very simple. It's simply a texture from one of my favorite websites, and that is Texture Labs. And I am using this ink paint texture that I'll use as our wall. So let's bring it into the timeline and let's activate the 3D switch. And what I'll do is I'll go to the top view, zoom out, and let's reposition the camera so you can see where everything is located. And for the wall, let's make it orange so you can see this layer. And let's just push it back in Z space. And to give you a number, let's push it back 5,000 pixels. So this is where the wall is in relationship to the chord lines. Let's switch back to camera 1. And you can see that it's pretty small. So let's scale this up. Let's scale it up to about 400%. And what we can do is we can move this higher if we want. Now, one thing that I want to show you is if you have a background layer like this, like a texture, or you have a composition, and you're using the advanced 3D render engine, you can drill down to geometry options and you can curve this flat image, which is pretty cool. So we can curve it about 75%, and I can increase the segments to about 12. And if I go to custom view 1, let me pull out so you can see it. I'm gonna pull out so you can see that we are curving. We just curved this background texture, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's switch back to camera 1. And if you need more real estate, you see we ran out of real estate. What you can do is we can add motion tile. And for the width, this will depend how much real estate you need. I don't think I need too much, so I'll make it 125, and then I'll mirror the edges. Okay, now from here, let's add our cutout. And what I'm gonna do is go to cutouts and delete this layer. Grab your athlete, and we'll use Caitlin Clark for this one. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this cutout to the comp icon, and I'm gonna add some effects to our athlete. Okay, let's make 2 copies, Control D or Command D. This second one, we'll call it highlight, and the top one, we'll call it matte. And this is something that I showed you in the Luka Doncic workshop. This is a way to give the edges a little bit of a rim highlight. And what I'm gonna do is for the matte, I'm gonna add 2 effects. The first one is gonna be fill. We're gonna fill it, if I solo this, we'll fill it with white, and let's add a fast box blur and give it a radius about 15, 20 pixels. Okay, now for the highlight, let's solo this one. You can add a tint or you can add a fill. Let's just add a fill, just keep it easy. And what I'm gonna do is just give it the same gold color that we have. We can give it another color, but for now, let's keep it simple, the same gold color. Okay, I'm gonna solo the matte so you can see what we're gonna do. Now the highlight layer, using track matte, we're gonna go to the matte and make sure that we switch from alpha to luma. And what we wanna do is we want to invert it. So this is what we have. Let me change the background color to black so you can see, and toggle the transparency grid. So we have a little bit of a highlight, and you can control the amount by the feather, the radius, the blur radius. So if you want more, you can increase it. If you want less, you can decrease this number. Okay, now let's unsolo the highlight layer. And from here, you can do a couple things. We can actually, let's see, we added levels. We can add some levels. And we can go and add a blending mode. The blending mode really helps. You can see that if I hide this and enable it, we're getting a nice rim highlight around the edges of our athlete. So that's a cool way to kind of add a little more. You don't have to add a fill. Like I said, you can do a tint. If you want a tint, you can add a tint as well instead of a fill. It's totally up to you. And obviously the color matters as well. If you change the color, you may need to change the blending mode as well, but hey, it depends. You can see right here, we're getting this cool purple look, but for now, I'm gonna keep it with the gold color. Okay, now that you have that done, what I'm gonna do is go back to our composition, and let's call this Caitlin cutout. So we know that this is a cutout. Let's bring it into the timeline. and I'm going to scale it down so we can see where she is. What I want to do is bring the anchor point to the bottom. So I'm going to use this tool and just click on it, bring it to the bottom, or you can hit the letter Y and go to snapping and then just boom, bring it there. Okay, now let's place Caitlin in 3D space. I'll switch to my front view, and I need to really pull back here so we can see where we're at. And let's move her up. Okay, and let's go to the top view. And let's push her right around here, right around 500. So we can put her at 500. And let's go back to camera 1. And we can go to the camera tool and just move this. Okay. This is looking pretty cool. All right, now what we'll do is let's add some of the court lines in the background. So what I'm going to do is go to the court lines 3D, make a copy, and call this wall. And that will be the version for the wall. Now this version, I'm going to change the stroke to a dark gray. And I'm going to change maybe the width, make it a little thinner. And what I'm going to do is go to the rotation, and I'm going to change the rotation. So what we want to do is make this 0, and then let's flip this, make this 270. And let's go to the top view. Let's unsolo it so we can see where we're at. Push this back. Now remember that our background layer, we curved it. So this is the area of the curve. So we want to push this back to about maybe 4,000 pixels. Let's go back to camera 1. And let's move this higher. And this one, let's make this about 800. Move it up. Let's go back to the wall, and I'm going to actually put it at 3,000 pixels. So it's a little closer to us. And you can play around with exactly where you want it. What I would do is, if you want to reposition, just go to the position property and just play with the numbers. Sometimes it's easier just adjusting these numbers than using the selection tool. All right, so we have these court lines in the wall, and now save your project, because the next step is we're going to add our lights and then the text. Okay, amigos, let's add our lights. What I'm going to do is go to layer, new, and let's go to light. And what we'll do is we'll go to environment, make sure intensity is set to 100. We're going to cast shadows 100%, hit OK. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, instead of using the light, we're going to link it to an HDR. And one of my favorite websites to download HDR is Polyhaven. I have this Studio HDR that I'm going to use, and I'm going to bring it into the timeline. And what we can do is, let me make this yellow so we know that this is for lights. I'm going to hide this layer, but I'm going to reference it through the environment light. Let's drill down to light options where it says source. Let's select our HDR. And now what I'm going to do is go to the transform properties and simply just play around with the X and the Y and just get somewhere where you see nice reflection. And I'm going to pull back a little bit. Let's pull back a little bit. There you go. We can get some really nice reflection. Okay, this is looking pretty cool. Now, I'm going to add another light. Let's go to layer, new light. And I'm going to add a point light. Keep it at 100% intensity. Now, this point light, if we go to the top view, I'm going to push it back. And if I go to the front view, let's move it around here. And let's go back to camera 1. Now you see this little highlight right here. This is from our point light. So depending on where you move your point light is how much you'll be able to see this highlight, which is pretty cool. And if you want to make it, if we push it further, you'll see it more. So this is totally up to you. We'll keep it 870, 135. Okay, now one thing that I do want to show you, which is really important, is that we can control which layers are affected by the lights, which layers are casting shadows or not casting shadows. And that's what we want to do. For example, you can see here, Caitlin Clark is being affected by the lights. Maybe we don't want her to be basically affected by the lights. We want to go into material options, hit AA, or you can simply just drill down to material options, and you have these 3 properties, which are super important. Do we want to cast shadows? Yes, for her, we do want to cast shadows. Do we want to accept shadows on her? No, so I'm going to switch it to off. And do we want to accept lights? I'm going to switch it to off. And that way, the environment light or the point light is not affecting that image at all. Now, what we want to do though is go to the trim path and do the same thing for all of our layers. Do we want to cast shadows? I'm going to put off, accept shadows, off, accept lights. I'm going to switch it to off for that trim path. Now for the 3D wall, we want to cast shadows. I'm going to put off. Do we want to accept shadows? Yes, we can. Accept lights. That's fine. We'll accept lights. And for the 3D, we want to cast shadows on, accept shadows. Yeah, we can say accept shadows. That's fine. And do we want to accept lights? Definitely we do. Let's see. Off, on, off. And let's go to the floor. And the floor, we want to cast shadows, off. We want to accept shadows, yes, on. And once you do, you can see that now we can see that shadow from our athlete, which is pretty cool. And we definitely want to accept lights. So what I recommend is going through your layers and figuring out what are the options that you want for each of those layers, because it does make a difference. And let's save this. And one more thing, let's go to render options. This is really important. Now, in my experience, I've been using a render quality of 30 and been getting pretty good results. I don't think there's really a reason to crank this all the way up. Obviously, the higher you crank it up, the bigger of a hit your GPU will take and the longer the render time. If you have a slower machine or a slower GPU, I would definitely recommend maybe bumping this down to maybe 15 or 20. If you have a better or faster GPU, you can increase this, but really a value of around 30, 40, I don't really go over 30. Maybe if you're having some issues, you can try cranking it up a little higher, but 30 seems to be a good sweet spot to start and to get really decent renders. Now, as far as shadows, full, right now I'm at full. If I go half, it'll be not as good shadows. If you go to double, it'll really take a hit on your GPU. It'll give you the nicest shadows, but it'll take longer to render. So when you're ready to render, you can switch it to double or leave it in full. And lastly, if you're having issues with seeing the shadows, you can go to Casting Box Center and hit Fit to Scene. So it's right on your scene and it knows exactly where to cast the shadows. So I'm going to hit OK for now. This is looking pretty good. The next thing that we want to do is create the text and then basically finish with our camera. The next step is to create the player's name or the text that's going to live behind the cutout. To do that, let's create a new composition. We'll call it player's name 1920 by 1080, 23.976. Now let's go to the 3D renderer and make sure that you are in classic 3D. It might be in advanced 3D. You don't need it for this one. You should switch to classic 3D. Now hit OK. And let's go to the text tool and type in the player's last name. In this case, I'll type in Clark. And I'm using this Adobe font, which is a pretty cool serif font called Lust. And if you are on the Adobe Creative Cloud, you should have access to this one since it is on the Adobe font website. Now, what I'm going to do is for the font size, 300, for the vertical scale, 110. And if you need to make it bigger or smaller, you can increase the scale. Let me center the anchor point and let me align it right in the center. So let's go ahead and go to the align tool. Let's place it right in the center. Now to give it that cool gold texture, again, I'm keeping things really simple and just using a cool texture from Texture Labs. This is a really great gold texture that they have, and just bring it into your timeline and simply with track matte, go ahead and link it to the text. Make sure that you have alpha matte selected. And with the texture, you can move it around and just kind of get the right look that you're looking for. Okay, now to create the name, what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and see player's name. Where is player's name? Right here. Let me make a copy of that one. And this is going to be player's name, and I'm going to call it rectangle. And let's double click to go inside. And what I'll do is delete all of these. Let's delete all of this. And let's go ahead and type in their full name, Caitlin Clark. And I'm going to change the font for this one. And I'm going to use another favorite font called Dharma Gothic. And I'm going to use extended or EX bold italic, this one. Actually, let's go to the medium one. Let's see, the medium one is probably better. Okay, and let's switch it back to 100%. I'm going to make this smaller. And the kerning, let's make it 100. We can actually make this bigger if we need to make it bigger. Okay, let me put this right in the center. Let me align it right in the middle. And now let's deselect. And by the way, I have all caps on, so this is totally up to you, but I think all caps works really good. Now deselect, and let's go to the rectangle tool, double click to create a shape layer rectangle. And then from here, what we're going to do is simply go to the path and let's unlink it. And let's make it smaller. We'll make it 850 for now and 150. We can modify this as we go. And let's go to the transform of the rectangle. Let's go to the skew. Let's make it 12. And what I'll do is using track matte, let's link it to the text. And let's go to invert. Okay, when we do that, if I go to the transparency grid, you can see that this is being cut out or punched out. Now the cool thing about this, if you want to modify this, you can modify the size of the font or the kerning, is totally up to you, but I think this is looking pretty good. And from here, what I'll do is go back to the player's name, bring in that rectangle. And one thing that I want to do is go back to the rectangle, make sure that stroke is set to none. Perfect, we just want white. All right, now that we have it here, we can scale it down. Maybe about 50. We can move it. And again, let's go to the texture, make a copy, and using the track matte, let's point it to the player's name rectangle layer, and we can move this around. Perfect. Okay, now let's go to the text tool, and I'll type in her number, 22, and this is actually using the other font called Lust, and we'll make this bigger. Make this bigger, about 125. It's up to you, amigos. I think 125 is actually, we'll make it 110. 125 is pretty good. Now to create the position is the same steps that I showed you to create this rectangle, but instead of a rectangle, it's a circle. What I'm gonna do to save some time is just bring that in. I'll show you right here. Here it is, the shape layer. the position, and I'm using this font. It's again Dharma Gothic, but this one is not in italics and is a little thicker in font. Okay, so I'm going to bring that in, and that will be for the position. And we'll put it, I'll put it right here. Now that we have the name done, let's go back to our graphics, and let me bring in that layer in, or that composition in. Let's place it in 3D space. And what I'm going to do is let's go to our top view. Let's push it back in Z. Let's go to the front view and we'll put it higher. Let's go to our camera 1 and let's go to the scale, and let's scale this up to about 150. And now let's go to the material options. Let's drill down AA. We hit A, the letter A twice. That's a shortcut to go into the material options. And again, definitely figure out if you want to cast shadows. It's casting a shadow, which is pretty cool. Maybe I'll turn it off. Let me see if I turn it off. I might turn it off just to kind of save some time. Set shadows off. We don't want any shadows on it. And you have the decision if you want to set lights on or off. We set it to off. It's going to be a little brighter, so that's up to you. These are choices that you can make, amigos. But this is almost done. The last step really is to make some adjustments to our camera, and pretty much we're done. Okay, amigos, the last step is to set up our camera for success so we can animate our camera. And before we do that, let me go to our environment light, point light in studio, change it to yellow, color coded yellow, so we know that those are related to the light. Let me go to the camera and I'll switch it to purple. All right, let's create a null object. And I'm gonna make a copy, Control D, Command D. Now the first one, let's label it move, and the second one, let's rename it to rotate. Now let's select both, activate the 3D switch to place them in 3D space. Now let's go to the rotate, and we need to figure out exactly, go to the top view, we need to figure out exactly where we want to place this in Z depth. And what I think I'll do is I'll make it at 500, which is the same position where our cutout is located in Z space. Okay, let's go to camera 1. And what I'm going to do is go to the camera, go to the position, P for position, A for the anchor point. So I'll hold on to P and then Shift A to bring up both. And let's right click, let's reset it. Now that we reset the camera, now what we can do is parent it to move, and then move, let's parent it to rotate. So what I'll do is I'll go to the move, and we'll only use this if I right click, go to separate dimensions. I'm only going to use this to move our camera. And then the rotate null will be for rotation purposes only. So we'll go to rotate, and we'll use this to just rotate for us. And you can see that we need to bring the background a little higher. So let's go to the background, which is the wall, and I'm going to go to the position property, and just actually this is a 3D wall, the 3D court. Let's go to, this is the wall. Let's rename this to wall. Go to the position, P for the position property, and I'm going to move this higher. Perfect. And from here, amigos, it's simply just adding keyframes. Really is just adding keyframes for the move. And let me make this fit up to 100%. And for the rotate, we can make this 0. Push in a little bit. So we're pushing in. And as you push in, we can actually move the last name or the name of the player. We can actually push it back more in Z space, maybe 1,000, to give it more parallax. So that's something that you can adjust, do that fine adjustment. Once you see your camera move, you can go in and you can make some fine adjustments. Maybe this should be a little bigger. I think this looks better, a little bigger. And these are the stage where you do that fine tuning, you're polishing your graphics, giving it the right scale, the right placement is in this very last step when you're trying to add some keyframes to the camera and you're trying to figure it out. And this is usually where I'm adding those details and, you know, fixing those little numbers, dialing the numbers exactly to where they should be. And once it lands, we can definitely, we can definitely rotate this if you want. One thing before we finish this up is I would go to the cutout of the player and let's right click, go to transform and auto orient, and let's select orient towards camera. And what that will do is let's just change the camera for a minute. Let's just change it for a minute. So if we rotate this camera, our cutout is always going to be facing the camera, which is pretty cool. And I think that really works. If you do that, you might have to increase this. You might increase your cutout a little bit. And we might need to just change the camera angle a little bit so it's not too... One last thing is what I did for the original Caitlin Clark and for the cutout is I added two effects. One is a levels and one is a tint with that gold color but at 20%. And that kind of helps put her more in that world right here by copy and paste. You can see that really just kind of helps it a little more. So just adding those two effects. And the tint, like I said, it's not at 100% because if it's at 100%, then this is what you get. But if you dial it down to 20%, it's just a hint of that tint. And obviously this one, I had to add a little bit of levels to give it a little more pop, make it a little more contrast. And that will depend on the image that you're using of the athlete that you're cutting out. But I think those things really help out. But that is it. Hopefully this was a good intro into creating 3D graphics all inside of After Effects, especially for sports. And hopefully it wasn't too complex for you. And it's something that you can implement for your own sport or whatever athlete that you're trying to do for. And remember that life is truly a gift. Make it count.